This is a background that I wanted to share with you today. I think it is just absolutely breathtaking, super easy to create, and I wanted to share the technique because it makes such a big difference and it can be used in a multitude of designs. I think you're going to absolutely love this technique, and I think you're going to be totally wowed with how easy it is to create. Just going to demonstrate on a smaller ornament for the sake of time. But I went ahead and base coated this or sealed it with a multi-purpose sealer for a couple reasons. This is a wood product. It's just going to ensure that the paint's going to adhere really well. But also after I sealed it, I let it dry and then lightly sanded it. And the surface is just as smooth as silk. It makes a really easy surface to paint on, and it's extremely good to your brushes. I'm going to start out with raw sienna, and this is a really different color to begin with. And I think if you watch a lot of oil painters and a lot of fine painters, they always base coat their surfaces with a neutral color such as raw sienna. And I tried this just to see if it would make a difference, and it creates a beautiful ground to build on. And with this raw sienna, it just richens the acrylic colors and really makes them shine, and they're absolutely beautiful. I'm using a 3/4 inch oval wash. I like a bigger brush. This is a rather small surface, and you might think this brush is way too much of an overkill. However, this whole technique needs to go quickly, and if you're using a bigger brush, you'll be able to cover the surface in the area much quicker than if you start with a small brush. I have dampened it. You can see my fingers wet, but it's not drippy. I want to thin my paint down, and I'm loading it well into my brush. I want to do the whole surface before I have to reload. Again, another reason why a bigger brush is going to work out better. I want to create a slip slap motion. I'm not using the chisel edge. I want to lean my brush down at a sharper angle, not straight up, almost as if you're using a pen or a pencil, maybe even a little bit more. But I'm going to lay it on the back side and flip it over on the top side. So slip, slap, almost creating the X shape. And I'm just going to start in the middle and work toward the outer edges. And even though I've loaded my brush well, I ran out of paint. That's why it's important when you're thinning your paint out that you have a little spare pile in case you have to go back and reload. Now, that's how quick that you need to apply the paint. It's light and dark, but it's not spotted. And I'm going to give it a quick dry. A lot of times when it dries, you'll be able to see that brush stroke just a little bit stronger on that surface. And that's what I want, just a nice light and dark base coat. I could go in and add a second coat just to strengthen that color. We'll go ahead and do that just so I'm afraid it might not show up as well on camera. And just because I'm adding the second color, I still don't want this solid and opaque. So I'm really have my paint thin. I'm going to thin it down just a little bit more. I just want a hint of color. And I'm just going to slip slap that down. Again, see how quickly that covers the surface. If you're not covering that surface that quickly, you either need to add more water to your paint or pick up a bigger brush. Give it another quick dry. Now this background is going to consist of several layers of paint, maybe 2 to 3 layers before you achieve the intensity or the coverage that you like. And it's really rather ugly when it starts out, so don't let that be discouraging because it absolutely becomes breathtaking. There's something about this raw sienna that just really transforms that paint and helps that background create a depth that is just quite attractive. Now the colors are going to shift from the top left to the bottom right. Let me go back to this for 1 second. And you can see how it shifts from blue down into the green. I wanted that blue up in the top to maybe read as the sky area, and then as it goes down more towards the bottom, it would be the grass area. I want to make sure that that is nice and dry. I'm working quickly with loose paint, but I don't want my paint to be wet when I apply that next layer. Different combinations of color can be used, but what the secret is to create a buffer between the two colors. If you have trouble working quickly, fast dry glazing medium or a distress sprayer can be your secret helpers that will make a world of difference. I'm going to start out with bleached sand, and this will be my buffer color, and I'm going to apply this in the middle area. And I'm loading my brush, creating that thinned paint. I want those layers to be translucent, not solid. The paint needs to be added quickly and without reservation. Before I put that on, I'm going to go ahead and squirt out just a little bit of Whispering Turquoise and Hauser Light Green. So I'm going to start with the bleached sand in the middle, and I'm just going to add that in there. I wiped my brush off, but I didn't clean it out. Picking up Whispering Turquoise, starting in the top and blending to the center. Now you can see I've blended it, but there's no harsh edges, but I'm just going to let that ride. I'm going to wipe my brush out, pick a little bit of the Hauser Light Green, start at the bottom and work up towards the middle, and I blend these colors together. There are no harsh stop and start lines. It's just kind of, it really does look kind of patchy, but I'm okay. I'm just starting to lay in those layers. I said earlier, it will take several layers. And adding these layers in quickly and adding them in with layers will absolutely be stunning. It's almost kind of magical how those layers build. You can see a lot of that raw sienna kind of underlying in those colors. I'm going to load that bleached sand. This is my buffer color. And I'm just going to very loosely, I don't want any sharp, harsh edges, pick up that Whispering Turquoise and blend it toward the center. You can see, ooh, that looks so much better. This is only the second coat. And we'll just go up a little higher. I can even blend them together because the turquoise and the green are beautiful friends. They blend very, very nicely. While I'm drying, I'll let you look at the sample to see how those colors shift very quietly. And if you peek really, really well behind the birdhouse, if you look really well behind the birdhouse, you might see a hint of that raw sienna resonating through. Okay, let's go back here, and I'm still going to put that bleached sand on there. Going into Whispering Turquoise. I'm going to bring this down and blend it in just a little. I don't want a white strip in the middle. And I can bring some of that Whispering Turquoise down just a little bit. I'm slowing down this time because I think this is going to be good. Wipe my brush out, pick a little bit of the Hauser Light. And I'm going to walk that right up into that bleached sand. I don't want to have any hard lines of color. It's still wet, so I can go back and play with it just a little bit more. Isn't that pretty? And I'll give it one more quick dry. I can go back and add another layer, but I think this is going to work out well. I just have that quiet shift of colors. And this is the background. This is just a subtle, kind of almost like a moving background. It just gives a little bit of shifting in there. Because I want this bottom area to be a little stronger and heavier, helps to weight the bottom down. I picked up a little bit of plantation pine on the toe of my 1/2 inch awesome angle, and I'm just kind of floating that in there very, very loosely, very quickly. But look at that, it's really starting to give some more volume and weight towards the bottom. Go back to my sample again, and you can see how much darker and deeper that is. I didn't do this in the sample piece, but I'm just going to go in and put a hint of midnight blue in the top corner, and that's just going to balance it out. It'll just add that little hint of color, just softly float it down. My paint is very, very thin, just a hint of color. I almost didn't even need to put that on my palette, just to kind of balance that out. And it just helps to shift from this darker toward the center. I'm just putting some water on it to really blend it out. This is such a beautiful background to create. Some of the other pieces that I've used with this same technique, and this will give you an idea on different colors. On this background, I used a sand gray and a winter blue, and I just let it shift from light down here to the darker, and there's a little bit of black plum down here just to give a subtle hint of color. A little bit of color makes a big difference. Okay, these are some other projects that I designed. The Let Heaven and Nature Sing on the left. That shifts from a light blue down to a thicket, which is a deeper, duskier blue, and it just is more monochromatic, but it's a very beautiful result. The candle at the top is antique white and some charcoal gray and a little bit of aqua sky to create that shift of color. The snowman and Christmas tree is more reds and yellows to create that look of candlelight glow in the background, and you can see how that shifts. The lantern has more of a golden color in the middle, and then we go from blue to a darker green color. Back to the original sample. I think this gives you an idea of all the different ways that you can use this technique to create that wonderful background that is just absolutely breathtaking. It's not difficult to create. However, using layers of thinned paint, it's almost glazing in the world of fine art, just creates a glow that is just breathtaking. Once I've added the background in, I usually put a coat of ultra matte varnish just to seal it in. That way, if I have any problems with my design that I place on top, I'm not going to dig into that gorgeous background. I love how this turned out. I hope you give it a try. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to hit the bell and subscribe. I hope you learned a few new tips, tricks, and techniques to make your painting life a little easier and a lot more fun. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to our next painting adventure together. And remember, a little bit of paint makes a big difference.